Hey y'all, I am here. so, not bad. Only what, 5 minutes late? Not bad for having yoga from 6 to 7. So I decided that I didn't need to continue to skip my yoga because I am really trying to be consistent. I love yoga, it just makes me feel better. And so I want to be consistent with continuing to go. And I had not been this week. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to get some time in for myself. And I hope you guys are doing that too. It is Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. Yay. And I hope that you are thinking about yourself and that you are taking some time for yourself. So if you are hopping on and you are watching the replay, I would love for you to put hashtag replay. Again, this is my Let's Talk About Sex series. And for this particular episode, I am going to be sharing some information with you about HPV. So very, very important. Very, very common. So please hit hashtag replay, put comments, share with your friends. HPV, even though, I am all about women's health and that is who I like to speak to, HPV also affects men. And so share it with your homies as well. Okay. So I'll jump right in. Again, I'm talking about HPV, which is human papilloma virus. So I will not be saying that much more during the video. I will be calling it HPV for short. But I'm talking about HPV. HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection. It has almost 6 million people each year who are being infected with this sexually transmitted disease. 6 million people a year. So it is very, very common. Hey, Nick. Thanks for watching. HPV is very, very common among men and women. And so, like I said, 6 million people each year are contracting HPV. And so that is why it is something that we need to talk about because it is the most common infection, but it can cause cancer. And so I don't want to scare anybody or frighten anybody because it can be rare that it causes cancer, but it does cause cancer. One of the interesting things about HPV is that you can have it for years and it go undetected. Most people who have HPV, it will cure itself via your own body's immune system within 2 years. Yes, 2 years, not 2 weeks, not 2 days, not 2 months. 2 years, your body will clear this infection if it goes undetected or asymptomatic. But if your body does not clear this disease, that is when cancer can come into play. That is when things become a little bit more scary. And again, a lot of people are asymptomatic. A lot of people don't even know that they have it. So you don't know if you're at risk for cancer. Like I said, if it clears within 2 years, you're pretty good. And most people don't have the symptoms, so they don't know that they have it. And so that's where the fear comes in for HPV. So I want to share just some of the symptoms of HPV that you may see. And again, HPV is not something that you should be ashamed of. That's, again, one of the reasons that I'm doing these videos, one of the reasons that I'm talking about these things, because you should not be ashamed to talk about it. You should not be ashamed to go to your providers. You should not be ashamed that you have it because it is common. Somebody right beside you may have it or may have had it and they may not have just told you about it. So definitely don't be ashamed. But some of the symptoms that you can have when you are experiencing HPV or when you've been infected with HPV is warts on the genitals, warts on the anus, and also cancerous growths in the mouth. So yes, HPV can be contracted via oral sex, and you can get those cancerous growths in your mouth. And later, when we talk about the different types of cancers, just kind of remember that I said that oral sex is a way that you can also contract HPV, because we'll be talking about the different cancers that you can contract from, that you can get from untreated HPV. I want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly, because I don't want you to think that you have HPV, you're going to get cancer. That is not the case. So definitely want to make sure that I am explaining this correctly to you and that you're understanding correctly. HPV, again, can be spread through blood. It can be spread through sexual contact, and it can be spread through oral sex. So keep that in mind. And I've already kind of told you that it will clear. Most people, it clears within 2 years. So just kind of keep that in mind. But you want to be on the lookout. So if you start to experience any of these symptoms of HPV, you want to make sure that you're talking to your providers about it. The best way to catch HPV, of course, is early detection. Like anything, it can be the doctors can find it through pap smears, through going to see your gynecologist, those type of things. So again, I have my notes here. So if y'all see me looking away, want to stay on track, want to make sure I'm giving you the best information. So there is a vaccine for HPV. It's usually for ages 11 to 21. And it's a 3-series vaccine. So there is something that you can start with your kids at an early age. If you're 21, or if you're within that age and you're watching this video, definitely want to make sure that you're getting the vaccine because it can protect you and it can help you. So I want to make sure that you are aware of, I don't want to talk about the different types of cancers just yet. I actually want to go into 5 different things that it's important for you to know when it comes to HPV. And the number one thing I've already talked about, which is to not feel ashamed about HPV. Anyone who has had sex may have been exposed to HPV, so it is definitely not something to be ashamed of. If you feel something, say something. Prevention, early detection. Just talk to your doctors about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There are certain types of HPV. So basically, I don't even know if I said this earlier. HPV basically is a large group of viruses. I think I just jumped right into talking about HPV. But HPV is a large group of viruses that cause wart-like growths. And those are called papillomas or cancers. So definitely keep that in mind. It's just a large group of viruses. And I wanted to go back and touch on that because the next thing that I'm going to tell you is that there are more than 100 types of HPV. So more than 100 types of HPV actually exist. Only a dozen of those are associated with cervical diseases. So HPV can cause cervical dysplasia. That's what I wanted to say. So I think I told you earlier that cancer is rare. It really is rare with HPV because, again, your body usually clears it within 2 years. But cervical dysplasia is when the changes occur in your cervix and in the opening of your uterus. So women, this is where those reproductive issues can come in for you. The most common thing that HPV causes is cervical dysplasia. So it causes different issues in your cervix and in your uterus that can prevent you from conceiving, or that can cause several other things, pain, so on and so forth. It just leads to other things within your reproductive tract. Okay. So important, again, to make sure that you are getting the care that you need, and that if you see something, you say something, because with us women, even though there is a lower risk of cancer if you don't have a particular type of HPV, or if your body has cleared it, but we still are at risk of these cervical issues that HPV can cause if it goes untreated for extended amounts of time. Okay, so I definitely wanted to make sure that you knew that there were several different types of HPV. HPV can cause head and neck cancer. So now we're going to jump right into me telling you about the different types of cancers that HPV can cause. It can cause head and neck cancer. This can occur in the tonsils. It can occur in the back of the tongue. And yes, this is due to oral sex. So remember, I told you earlier to just make note of me saying that HPV can be contracted through oral sex. And if you do have HPV and it is via oral sex and it goes untreated and it goes for more than 2 years, you're higher risk of obtaining these particular type of cancers. So keep that in mind. So neck, head cancer, men are 3 times more likely to develop the head and neck cancer than women are. So men, that's a little statistic for you to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. Now, even though I did mention cervical dysplasia as being the precancerous condition, but having a lot more reproductive issues, there are different gynecological cancers that can be caused by HPV if it does go untreated. Cervical cancer is actually one of those. It can affect have more cancers in the female reproductive organs altogether. So that can be linked back to HPV. Okay, so that is a little bit on those cancers. There is also rectal cancer that HPV can cause if it goes untreated. So again, making sure that you are checking. This affects both men and women. HPV is thought to be responsible for about 91% of anal cancers. So if you have heard of, seen someone, or even read about anal cancer, 90% of those cases can be traced back to HPV. Also, penile cancer. That is men specifically for you, even though it's relatively rare, but it affects men over 18 mostly. It is thought to be responsible for 63% of penile cancers, okay? So HPV, again, affects both men and women. So it is important to make sure that you are getting checked. Again, it is the most common sexually transmitted infection. It is affecting over 6 million people each year. Okay, and that includes men and women. So that's why it's important to make sure that we are taking all of the steps that we need to take and following all the precautions that we need to take. Taking all the precautions that we need to take in order to make sure that we're healthy. Because again, you can be asymptomatic. You cannot have any of the warts or cancerous warts that may come up that I talked about earlier. That's a symptom. Again, you could be asymptomatic. So if you feel different, if you notice something that comes up and goes away and you're not sure what it is, just get checked. What is the worst that could happen? They could say this is nothing and you can go home and you're fine. So HPV is one that I specifically wanted to talk about. Again, I think I told you this in another video. HPV is not one of those sexually transmitted infections that I knew a lot about, which is scary because it is so common in men and in women. And so I didn't know a lot about it. And I had a friend who came to me and actually said, I had HPV as a young person and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to do with it. And it caused her a lot of issues until she was diagnosed with it. And so what I would like to point out is that though I am not familiar with HPV, it is important for us to talk about. It is important for us to talk to our kids about, because again, they have these vaccines from ages 11 to 21 that you can take for HPV prevention. So just be like Nike and do it. Just be like Nike and do it. I know that some people, and if you are against vaccines, I understand that. I don't want to dwindle off into that at all. If you are against vaccines, don't get the vaccine, but make sure you're protected. Make sure you're having conversations with your children, your older children, those that are sexually active. Make sure that you're taking the necessary precautions as well, in order to make sure that you are safe. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like I said, I just ran in from yoga. I wanted to make sure that I was able to jump on and talk to you about HPV and let you know the importance of being tested and being checked and getting your pap smears and early detection as it relates to HPV. I hope this has been informative for you. I, again, just want to stress that any of the sexually transmitted infections that we've talked about, any of the reproductive issues that we've talked about, any of the women's health issues that we've talked about just in general, I want to make sure that you are aware that you do not have to be ashamed to talk about these things, because you are not alone. There are a lot of us women in this world who have experienced different reproductive health issues. Sexually transmitted infections are so common. So things that if you don't know, ask. Things that you have a friend or a family member that you can talk to and that you can trust. Just make sure that you are sharing information, because I truly believe that if we are not sharing information, we are going through life alone. We are going through things alone, and we don't have to. We don't have to be out on an island by ourselves. We can support each other. We can uplift each other. We can be there for each other. So don't let these conversations scare you. Don't let these conversations freak you out. Let's just be there for each other. All right. I don't want to just get on my soapbox tonight, y'all, because I can get on that soapbox and I can stay there. But thank you guys for watching. Again, if you are catching the replay, put #replay, share with your family members. Again, this is one that is not just for women, even though I am all about my women's health. This is something that affects men too. And so if I can share a tidbit of information that is going to help a man and that's going to save his life as well, or make him not feel alone, not make him not fear speaking up about his care either, then why not do that in the process? So share this information with your loved ones. #replay. Questions, comments in the bottom. Y'all have a good Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Y'all enjoy the weekend. See you guys next time.